Hey, okay, so you're probably like, hey, Matt, KB3K, whatever you want to call me. Why the heck are you in Minecraft right now? I just found a really easy method to do something pretty sweet. I'm going to turn a portion of this map into an ASSETTO CORSA track, and you're going to come along with me. So first, we got to find a good place to set up shop. Oh hey, I did some mining off camera, and look what I found, the perfect place. It's got mountains, and an ocean, and a bunch of hills. All we really got to do is flatten some land, and then get to work. I wish I knew how to make one of those cinematic Minecraft time lapses. Well, you don't, so get moving. What am I doing with my life? I could be progressing my career. Yes, past self. That would be slightly more beneficial than this, most likely. Okay, so we have a decent portion of flat land. Let's, try and make a little tunnel here. I was hoping for a little more, but I guess that makes sense. Okay, so we got our tunnel. That's cool. So I'm thinking this is going to be the layout. We're going to have pits over here, and then a big figure 8. Now we gotta add some lanterns, so we have something for later to utilize for track lighting. Then, of course, E shows up. Okay, so we got our track. Looking pretty good. Nice little circuit with a bunch of different routes. We got some lighting, we got some lava, some water. Everything's looking pretty good. So, now, what we're going to do, we're going to set our time to day. We're going to save. And boom, you got yourself a track ready for ASSETTO CORSA. Okay, in all seriousness, this took way longer to figure out than I initially thought it would due to various issues I kept seeing. I think I found a decent method of doing it that works a large portion of the time, but you're going to have to play around with it a bit and see what works for you. I'm going to put a tutorial at the end of the video for you to follow along with if you want to know how it's done or make your own Minecraft maps into 3D objects like this. As a side note, I also made my own first real Xpack for this map that includes some animals and vegetation ripped straight from Minecraft, so if you're interested in messing around with that, go ahead down to the description and join the unofficial RTB Discord and go to the Xpack section to find that post. I just want to say real quick that what led me to this was a comment on one of my previous videos. I'm not going to say a name or what the comment was because I think they had good intentions, but essentially what they were saying was that a particular part of one of my maps wasn't realistic enough or that it was flat out unrealistic. While I can appreciate and praise a map that dives deep into realism, I can also appreciate creativity just as much. Just because ASSETTO CORSA is a simulator doesn't necessarily mean that every map has to be completely true to life. And part of the fun of making these maps is the fact that you're not making something that actually exists. It's a fantasy. You have the freedom to make whatever's in your head that you think would be fun to drive. So no, my maps may not be realistic in some ways, but I think they're fun as hell, and most of the time I have a good time building them and learn more every time I try. All that to say, you pushed me to this, guy that left that comment. Okay, let's mine some tires. Let's smelt some rubber. I'm just gonna play the montage now.
Tell me what's the point if I lose myself? Spend a couple days with nobody else, holding in my breath just to see if I can find you in my dreams. Oh, I'm getting tired of losing faith in everything I see. The beauty in the stars above have lost their hold on me, 'cause I'm a sinner. I'm not the same. A heart of a
This was more or less a proof of concept, but with the knowledge in this tutorial, the possibilities of tracks and other creations you guys make is pretty much endless. Alright, you're still here, so I guess you want to know how it's done. Let's get started. This is going to be a bit of talking, so buckle up. So you have your Minecraft map. Maybe you're making a simple model of a structure you built, or you just want to give the video idea a try and make a map for ASSETTO CORSA using Minecraft as a base. Either way, this method will work for both. Hop into your Minecraft world and make sure you're in the location of the thing you want to export so it's easier to locate. We're going to call it target from now on. Take note of the y-axis of the upper and lower bounds of your target so we can use it later. Go ahead and save and quit. Now we're going to go over to the JMC to OBJ GitHub. I'll link it in the description for you. Once you download this application, go ahead and open it and hit the 3 dots at the top left. Here's where you select the Minecraft save file. If you don't know how to get to those, hit the Windows key and type %appdata% and hit enter. This is where all your Minecraft data is stored. Find and select the save folder for the map that has your target in it, and push load to the right of that address bar. You should see your map load in now. You can use your scroll wheel to zoom in and out, and right-click to drag and pan around. Find your object and center it in the frame to make things easier. Now, above the window that shows the map, you should see a tools section labeled floor-ceiling. This is where you're going to enter in those Y coordinates we saved from earlier. You can go exactly to those coordinates, or you can feather a bit and add a few to each end to create a bit of a buffer zone to clean up in Blender. Once we do that, we need to actually select the export area. We can do that by left-clicking and dragging to create a box around the target. And now we're ready for export. Go ahead and click that export button at the top and notice a host of options. We have a scale option right here at the top, which does exactly what you would think it does. A few texture options, export selections, and some other random ones. The first thing we're going to change is the radio buttons under scale. Change that to center. Next, move down to the texture section. Is this going to be something that goes in the background and doesn't need a lot of detail, or is this up close and personal like my track itself? For my purpose, I changed the prescale textures to 16x so they would be crisp and clear. If your object's in the background, you can leave this at 1. Also, check that box that talks about alpha channel. You'll need that to ensure grass and flowers and such can partially be see-through. Skip the maps and cloud section, and now we're at export selection. You can leave all the boxes in this top section checked except for convert ore blocks if you want to see the ores. Moving down to the next section, this is a bit more reliant on the project type you're doing. For example, for my track section, I use the separate objects for each chunk option because it's a larger area and it creates far less components of the target than separating by each material. However, for my Xpack, where I gave you individual entities like trees and animals, I exported separating by materials so I can just select them and add them to a group. To help out with the total size, I would also recommend turning on the box under it, which basically just combines adjacent textures that are the same into one continuous plane. In the next section, I have checked Optimize Mesh and Do Not Allow Duplicate Vertices. This is going to make our export slightly less heavy. Only thing to do now is hit export and watch the console log for it to finish and say done. You just made an object. Go you. Okay, now the fun begins. I have no idea how to use Blender. However, I've learned to use just enough Blender to make this tutorial for you. I put off learning Blender for so goddamn long, I'm finally forced to learn it so I can make Minecraft objects. Oh, God. Okay, open up Blender and you're already greeted with a base project. Click over here in your scene selection, then highlight all 3 of these things. You can then right-click them and click Delete. We don't need those. Now go up to File, down to Import, and select Wavefront OBJ. Find your object file where you created it, and it should load right up into Blender. You can use your scroll wheel to zoom in and out, and you can click and drag in this axis circle up here to rotate the view. That red and white circle in the center of your view right now is the center of the world, quote-unquote. So we need to make sure the target object is actually centered as best we can, as that's going to end up being the anchor point when you finally get to placing it onto a track. Depending on the material option for how you exported, you could have a single object in your collection up here, or you could have a million tiny ones. Whatever you have, right-click on where it says Collection and hit Select Objects. Now, on the left side of your screen, hit the Move tool. You might have to zoom out a bit, but you should see the green, red, and blue arrows appear somewhere on your screen. Use those arrows to drag your object over top the red and white circle we talked about. Try to get it as centered as possible to make things easier on yourself later. Don't forget to adjust the height as well. You can also use this hand icon on the right to drag the camera and pan it over in any direction if you have to. Perfect! Now we can make sure the thing we're exporting is actually what we want to export, and there's no extra pieces hanging on for dear life like this half tree and all this dirt that I don't want on my exported object. At the top right of your screen, you should see a bunch of selectable boxes, one of which says Material Preview. This will allow you to see the textures of your object. To the left of that is another option that when hovered over says Toggle X-Ray. Go ahead and click that. That's it, we got him, call the admin. There are two methods to get rid of this stuff. The easier method one would simply be clicking on a section you don't want there. If you exported by material, chances are you can just select that bit of material and delete that by right-clicking in the collection and hitting delete. However, if the material is shared with others you want to keep, you'll have to go with the more complex method 2. Here's method 2. Make sure everything is selected like before. Now, on the top left side of your screen, you should see a box that says Object Mode. Change this to Edit Mode. You should now see every vertex within your object. Neat! Once you select the part you want to delete, you can hit the Delete key and then select Vertices. This will erase that section of the object. Once you've cleaned up your overall object you want to export, we're pretty much ready for exporting. Go up to File, then Export. If you're just trying to make a 3D object to use anywhere, you can export using any of these formats that works for your application. However, if you're exporting to bring into Racetrack Builder, you need to set the format to FBX, and then change the scale to 0.01, and you can export to the same location the OBJ is in. Okay, last set of steps. So we have our FBX file now. Go ahead and open up XPacker. If you can't find it, right-click on the RTB icon on your desktop and open the file location. It should be in there. Once it's open, we can create a new Xpack by typing in a name, then hitting Create Empty Xpack. Add your name as the author, and if you want, you can add a description and upload a cover photo later on. Go ahead now and move over to the Objects tab. At the bottom, select Add. Find your FBX file we just made and select it. Disclaimer. While XPacker may allow you to upload FBXs that are over 10,000 kilobytes, albeit they will take a while to load, this does not mean that they will work in the long run. The object needs to meet the constraints of not only XPacker, but then KSeditor. I try to stick to at max 6,000 kilobytes FBX into XPacker, but it's a toss-up whether they will show up without error in KSeditor. So do some testing before you go building a whole map around your object. Okay, after you selected your FBX, it'll probably take a second to load into the list depending on how large it is. If you get an error of any kind, you messed up somewhere. Sorry. Next, go over to the Properties on the right. You need to set a group name for your object to appear in. Then you have a bunch of options. The options are pretty self-explanatory for the most part, but if you're simply trying to make an object to place into a track, just leave these the way they are and hit Save. Now we can move over to the Materials tab. Here we can see all the materials that make up the objects in our Xpack. If, for example, you have a flower or anything else in the object that is not a full block, or you should be able to see partially through it, find and select that texture, and then go to the ASSETTO CORSA tab. Now, where you see Transparency, change it to Alpha Test, and hit Save. If, for example, you have something that is translucent, like water or stained glass, you would set it to Alpha Blend and hit Save. Once you set all those materials that need changing, and saved properly, you're ready to roll. Go ahead up to File, then zip to RTB, and you're done. You just made your own Xpack. Congrats. And now that you know the process, it's pretty much the same to import any other object you may want. If you can import it into Blender with the materials, you can put it in an Xpack using these steps, and export as an FBX for RTB. Only thing left to do now is hop into RTB, load your Xpack, find your object, and place it down. Uh-oh. Okay, so looks like we missed this flower. That's okay. If we don't feel like repacking the zip folder, we can simply go up to Edit, Materials, and find that flower material and change it to the alpha test that it should have been. Now you can save, then export that track. Open KSeditor and import that track, and if your object looks good, then it'll show up perfectly in-game. If your object looks good in RTB but looks like this in KSeditor, that's a telltale sign that the object has too many polygons, and you'll either have to find a way to reduce the amount of polygons or cut the object into sections and export them as separate FBXs. We're all done. You did it. If you made it this far into the video, I want to thank you for putting yourself through the struggles of learning a new skill. Not only does it bring me joy knowing I was able to help enable someone to make something they wanted to create, but also that now you have the tools to start contributing to the community in a way you couldn't before. I also want to thank Cheddar SRD Shredder over in the RTB Discord, as his tutorial on importing custom objects was a direct request of mine that he carried out within 24 hours of me asking about any tutorials anyone had made on the subject. Link to his super to-the-point tutorial in the description. Without him, none of this would be possible. If this helped you out in any way, or if you enjoyed the short montage, why don't you drop me a like and maybe consider subscribing to catch all my future track releases and track building tutorials. For now though, I hope you learned something. GG's.